Okay, so today we're going to do roots, like the square root, cube root, and it will be this date on this year. And here we go. So we have a couple vocab words. I'm going to highlight them here. You can take the time. You can pause me and go ahead and fill out your vocab sheet. A square root of a number is one of its two equal factors. So what number times itself gives you that square root. Perfect squares are the squares of integers. So a nice whole number or a negative number, but we only can work with square roots being whole positive numbers. So you can fill out this graphic organizer on your own since it's what you think. So I will go down here. What is the relationship between squaring a number and finding the square root? They're opposites of each other. It's like they undo one another. So to square the square root undoes it, like inverses sort of. So we also have another vocab word here, radical sign, used to indicate the principal square root. So there's a couple special things that we have to keep in mind that as we get to slide 4, I will show you. But when you're taking the square root of a beautiful number, then the answer is just a positive number. So in number 1, what times itself is 64? Well, the answer is 8. So that's our answer, just 8. In number 2, this has a plus or minus sign out front, so our answer will have a plus or minus sign. This looks like 121, which is 11. So my guess is that the answer is 1.1. But if you don't know, in your calculator you can push the second button, and then the x squared button. So you get that square root symbol, and then you can type it in, and it is 1.1. So in this case, the answer is plus or minus 1.1. In number 3, we have a fraction. So if we could simplify this first, we could, but no common factors between 25 and 36. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom, but keep that negative sign out front. So it's like we're doing the square root of 25 over the square root of 36. So keep the negative out. What times itself is 25? Well, that's 5. What times itself is 36? That's 6. If you don't know those, just type them in your calculator or look at the sheet I gave you. Now, number 4 says the square root of negative 16. You're thinking negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 4, because it'd have to be the exact same. Well, that's positive 16. You can't have a negative 4 and a 4 because those aren't the same numbers. You have to take it times itself. So number 4, you cannot have the square root of a negative number. So we would say not possible. Or you could say DNE, does not exist. So I ask, can something squared be negative? Anytime you take something, a negative times itself, it will always be positive. So the answer is no. You can never multiply something by itself, even if it's negative, and get a positive. So moving on to A. We could rewrite it like this, which would give us 3 over 4. Can't be simplified. No plus or minus sign. Now here, the negative is different because it's outside, and that's okay. So we'll just bring that negative down because it's outside, and that's 7. If you don't know that, check your chart or use your calculator. Now here we're a little different. These are different because this is a straight up number, no variable equals. This one, the variable is equal to it. So in order to solve t squared, we have to undo t squared. Well, to undo something squared, you take the square root. So if I take the square root of both sides, I would get t by itself, and then I would get 13, and I could check my answer. 13 squared is, yes, 169. But so is negative 13, because negative times a negative is a positive. So when you are working with a variable set equal to a number, you will always have 2 answers, plus or minus the number. So same thing with E. To show my work, I just make a square root sign. I don't know this one off the top of my head, so you could write it, look at your chart, or use your calculator. I'm going to get A equals square root of 289 is 17. So positive 17 and negative 17. This one, I think it's 0.3 because this is 9. And another way to write a positive and negative is to write plus or minus, like you saw in an earlier example. Square root, oh, I'm just going to go like this. Square root and delete that. 0.3. It's not a perfect square. Perfect square, because they have perfect whole answers. Okay, square root. Y equals plus or minus. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 25 is 5. On to the back. This one is a cube root. So something cubed has 3 equal factors. Pause me, write it down on your vocab sheet. Perfect cubes because they're cubes of integers. 8, 27, 64, 81, those are just lists. Those are also on your your little chart thing that I handed out. The symbol, if you can't see it, it's actually a little 3 inside the square root sign to use the cubed root. So, the cube root, if you know this one, you might know that one, because what times itself 3 times is 125? Well, that's 5. But what about, how do I type it in my calculator? Let me show you. First, the number 3. Then the second button. Then the caret button. So it has a little X that you're replacing that X with a 3. There you go. Now this one, what about, well, the cubed root of regular 27 is 3. Could this one be negative 3? Let's think about it. If I took negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, 9. So does it work to take the cube root of a negative answer? And the answer is yes. So odds can be negative. And 3 is an odd number, cubic root. Okay. All right, cubic root of 729. I want to say is 6. Don't know for sure. Just push the up button. 729, not 9. Oh, 9. So 9. This is going to be negative, and I think it's 4. It is 4. And this is 10. The only time they will ever be negative is when it starts with a negative under the radical sign. Otherwise, it's positive, and it's only negative with a cubic. Okay, last one. An aquarium in the shape of a cube that will hold 25 gallons of water has this volume. Solve, and they give us the equation to solve. Solve s cubed to find the length of one side. So s cubed equals, I'm going to rewrite it. To show my work, I'm going to make the little radical sign, but then put the little 3 in there. And then I'm going to type that in my calculator. And I get 1.5. Go looking for the label. Cubic feet. To undo cubic, you just get the regular feet. There we go. So 1.5 times 1.5 times 1.5 is 3.375. I guess there's one more question. A square has an area of 64 inches squared. How many inches long is each side? So how long do each of these need to be? Well, a square is equal, so if you can figure that out. Or you could say side squared is equal to 64. You probably already know the answer in your head. Undoing the square root, we take the square root. So get s equals 8. Label would not be inches squared anymore, just inches. What's the perimeter? That's when we add up all the sides. 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, or 8 times 4 is 32. 32 inches. Perimeter is just a distance. Have a great day.